everyone, to another episode of Authentic as Fuck. My name is Sun. I'm a marketer and I teach storytelling. And in this podcast, I talk with entrepreneurs. I coach them through storytelling, their business, personal branding, and things like that. So we have our first guest, Sofia. Hi, Sofia.
Hi, San. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. Welcome. Let's start with kind of your introduction, what you do, where you're from, and then we can move into your story.
Yeah. So my name is Sofia. I work as a communications expert in Belgium, but also in my personal life, I do have a lot of interests that I pursue, such as music and. I organize artistic events, so I'm trying to find synergies between all the different stuff that I'm doing.
Awesome. All right. So let's go into your story. Do you wanna? You can either like read it or just say it, casually. It's up to you.
Yeah. No, I'd rather I'll just say it casually. So the story that I chose for this discussion is related to music. So I always wanted to learn how to play an instrument since I was a kid, but for one reason or the other, I never pursued it. And then when I became an adult, I had these limiting beliefs that it's too late, basically, to play an instrument as an adult, because there is so much time that you need to invest in it, and you should focus instead on your career and things that actually will bring money home. But I was always envious when I would see people playing music. So that brought me to actually still pursue this desire. So during COVID, when finally suddenly we all had a little bit more time, I decided to take some guitar lessons, and I started practicing every day. And then other limiting beliefs started, which were the ones of comparing myself to others of my age. So people who have played since they were kids. And I felt like very bad comparing myself. But also other beliefs like, oh, I probably should be focusing on, I don't know, buying a house and things that people do at my age instead of playing guitar and dreaming to be a rock star. But there were like little moments, little achievements, little moments of joy that kept me going. Things like being able to finally play my favorite songs and to play them in front of my friends. Going into a party and bringing my guitar and making everybody sing and seeing the joy in people's eyes. And especially, I realized this even more profoundly, what I like to say, my return on investment, because I studied business. And I like to see like how much time you invest in something. Anyway, basically, my one of the leaders at the organization where I work announced that he's going to leave the organization, and this came like really as a shock for everybody, and everybody was feeling at the same time sad but also grateful for all the time that we have been working together. And I felt that I didn't know how to express these feelings. So basically, I rewrote. I took a song that already exists, but I rewrote all the lyrics, and I learned how to play it in the guitar. And I presented myself in the office with a guitar, and I sang this song in front of everybody. And that was the moment when I was really touched, because I really thought this is a corporate environment. So I thought like people will think I'm crazy, and this is very outside of our colleague relationship, but I still wanted to do it. And when I saw like the joy in their eyes and the tears as well, and this little moment of magic that happened, I was like, okay, this is why I'm doing this, and this is my return on investment. It may be not what society expects in terms of what I'm doing with my life, but this is what brings me joy. So I want to ditch those limiting beliefs and just keep going.
I love it. Yeah, you brought tears to my eyes when I was reading that story. So it's a really, really great story. Now, can you tell me the lesson of that story in 7 words or less?
um, the most cliche that I think about was like pursue your dreams, but I thought like, nah, it's not something that I'd like to say. Then I wrote something like understanding your why. But this is the
Let's
reason
not
why I'm here.
let's not try to come up with lessons that fit the story. What is the lesson you learned? What's the realization you had in 7 words or less?
The realization I had is don't listen to your limiting beliefs,
Got
or
it.
you don't need to find logical reason to do something. You can do something
Yeah,
just because you like it. That would be like my main thing. Like
got it.
not because
Yeah,
it brings something, but just because it's true to you.
like that. Um, maybe something like you're not learning guitar. You're you're not doing it for the goal, but for the process. Maybe like the actual playing the music part rather than achieving something with that or something like that. Like focus on the
Yes, for
process
focus
more
on the
than the goal.
process as well. Yeah, yeah,
Something like that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Which doesn't mean that I don't want like something to come out of it. It's just like just like
Did you want something to come out of it before?
I always did, yeah. I always
Like
dreamed that
what?
maybe one day this will be my day-to-day job. I don't know, making songs or
Okay.
playing music.
So before that event, when you performed in front of your colleagues, did you feel that way? Did you feel like, oh, maybe I can be a musician one day? And like that's what you were going for. That was why you were doing.
Yes, yes. And I could not say that I do not feel it yet, but what I
Hmm.
feel now that even if that doesn't
Doesn't work.
happen, I don't care because I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I think that's a great story. You should tell it exactly like that. And what I'm gonna, because it's a great story, obviously, like I'm not gonna able to really coach you anything, but I'm gonna coach you on how to really up level it. Okay.
Please.
One thing that I can tell you is you've learned a lesson, and it's good enough. You know what's gonna be really, really, really powerful is when you actually become an artist. That's when you actually make it, right? And then you tell this story. That's when it's really powerful because then you can be like, I got here because I stopped caring about getting there. I
Mm,
just focused on the music, just just the human connections, the all of the things that I love about music is what got me there. And this is what the story can sound like at that point. Do you know John
mm.
Mayer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so John Mayer is the epitome of that. He didn't care about being a star. He didn't care about that. That wasn't why he did it, right? He went to Berkeley School of Music. He dropped out of school because he kept cutting school to record his music at night in the dorm. So he's like, well, this is pointless. So he quit school and he went to Atlanta. He was broke. He had no money. His friends were driving him everywhere, but he was just performing in front of 10 people at an open mic daily, just because he loved it. And then that turned into 30 people, turned into 90 people, 180 people, 6,000, 60,000 Grammy. But the only thing he was focusing on is just that, playing his music. That
Hmm.
he wasn't trying to get there. He was, and that's like kind of almost everyone you see successful, like at the top of the game, is like that. They just did it because they love something, and then it brought them all their success, right? So that's why it's going to be much more powerful later on. So remember that this is a story that can also serve you later too.
Yeah.
But right now, if you were to tell the story, um, I guess the lesson that you learn is that I don't need a goal, or
Mm.
maybe something like, um, don't wait for your final goal. Like have mini moments like that in between that you look forward to, instead of like waiting for that moment when I'm in front of 50,000 people in a stadium. Instead of that, do a mini version of that at work with 20 people
Yeah.
if you really enjoy it. It's kind of like what I said about if you're a chef, that's like your goal is to work in be a head chef in a 5-star restaurant. That's like what you consider a chef. You're not a real chef. A real chef like would love cooking hamburger for your friends at home on a grill. That's a real chef who enjoys cooking for others. It doesn't matter. It has to be a 5-star restaurant. It doesn't, whether it's a food
Hmm.
truck. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That's like the actual thing itself, right? Okay. So that's what I want to say about that. So maybe you can kind of work through the lesson and figure out how you can word the lesson there. Now, how do you up level this story? This is how you told the story. You're like, oh, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Right? That that is not. I mean, your story is so great that you're almost not doing it justice by telling it that way. Do you know what I mean? I want you to draw a clear picture for the audience of the story. And the main story is the event that happened at your work. Okay? All the stuff that you actually went about in the beginning, you need to shorten that into like 10 seconds because that's not the story. That's just a setup. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
the way I would start is like this. Like I wanted to play music my whole life, but I never did it because I'm like, oh, that's useless. I'm not going to find a job in, right? So I never actually did it. I just pushed it away until COVID happened and I started practicing every day. I got a little better. But even then, I felt like, oh, shit, I'm not good. Am I wasting my time trying to do this? I suck. But because I learned like little things like my favorite song, how to play this song, how to play my Stairway to Heaven. So I kept doing it. Like, you see what I just did? I put I drew a picture of, right, like, oh, like, you playing Stairway to Seven or something like that, right? So done. Backstory is done. Now don't, like, we need to get there quickly. We need to jump into the
Hmm.
story quickly because otherwise people are like, okay, what's going, okay, that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? Oh, this happened, and then I felt like this. Okay, nobody gives a shit. Okay, and then I would say on. So I would tell her like that. Like, this is yes, I've always wanted to blah, 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 but I suppressed myself, and I felt like I was like, this is pointless because like other people my age are so much better than me. Until one day, that's a key phrase. Until one day, you have to have you have to have like a clear. Remember what I always say is how do you build suspense? How do I keep them? How do I keep them listening throughout the whole thing? Like, right? How do you hook them? Is you need constant sense of mystery. Every time you raise a question, every time you answer a question, you have to raise another one immediately. So blah, 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 until one day, then people are gonna be like, "Oh, what happened?" Right now it's mystery. Okay, what happened? I want to know. Until one day, I was sitting in my office and I got this email. Subject, blah 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 blah. I open it, and do you see? Instead of saying it like, oh, until like this, the leader of my organization like decided to leave, or that does, you're not drawing a picture for them. That's not dramatic. What you have to do is until one day I got to work. So boom, the subject line, boom, there, and then it read this, and then you can explain, yeah, this is the leader that inspired me. I was sad to see him leave, blah blah blah. And then when you tell the story of you going in and performing, like I perform, and then like instead of describing what happened, instead of just saying what happened, like literally draw the picture of the room for them. Like I want to feel like I'm there with you. So I walked up with my guitar. I sat down. My heart was beating. I see these people just all staring at me like a deer without headlights. And I start playing. And 5-10 seconds into it, all that anxiety went away. All of it, and I just connected, and I just saw, and I looked over, and I saw tears in this person's eye. And I look over here, and I see this, and blah, blah, blah. And I just want you to really, really, really draw a picture of that moment so I can feel it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then say, and then I learned something that day. So once you do that, people are going to be like, what did you learn? Like, you see what I'm doing? I'm constantly raising questions. Like, as soon as I answer, I raise a question. As soon as I answer that, I raise another question, right? And at the end, maybe just, and then like the final punchline has to be your lesson. So you really, really need to dig into the lesson and figure out what the real lesson is for you, or the real lesson that you want to teach, and then end it like that. Last week's podcast, what I talked about is, in order to do that, you have to ask yourself 3 questions, because there's a difference between storytelling, to practice storytelling for myself, right? So that I can discover something about myself, versus storytelling to the others, like actually storytelling, right? If you're storytelling to the other, like if you want to polish this, then tell it for others, what you have to do is first, you have to ask these 3 questions. First, who is this story for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you know?
No, not exactly.
You see, right away you get stuck, right? Yeah. So when you tell the story for other people, that's the difference between telling a story for yourself versus other. Because when you tell a story for yourself, it's for self-discovery. And once you've learned that, okay, now I want to teach this lesson to these people, and I want to break their myth about this. So the 3 questions is, who is this for? What is the lesson you're teaching there? And what is the myth or the belief that you're breaking?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have these 3 things, then it'll become crystal clear. And I'll tell you this, your story actually has multiple lessons. So depending on who you tell it to and what you're trying to teach, what you're trying to break, what belief you're trying to break, you might tell the story slightly differently. And that's okay.
Yeah. That's a lot.
So yeah, I guess to
Thank you.
recap, I would say, to really up-level that story, number 1, clearly draw a picture of what that looks like. And one of the things that we talk about in Night Owl Nation is show, don't tell, right? So I give that example of like, oh, I used to be so bad at managing money. Like I would, I was like always spending money, and I was always broke, right? Like, yeah, that works. But if you say like, I would always, like, when I get paid, I would always take my friends out to drinks and dinner, spend all my money, and then for the next 2 weeks, I just eat ramen noodle, waiting for my next paycheck. And then when I get a paycheck again, I do it again. And now, when I draw a picture of what that looks like, it's so surreal. There's like so many nuances that they're gonna feel. Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And then lastly, the 3 questions, so you can find the answer. I was actually gonna say this when I heard that story. Yeah, when I heard that story, this is what I thought of. And I don't know if this is something that you thought of, or you thought it was a lesson at all. But for me, the real lesson is what you did there is actually what 99.9999% of people in the world do. 0.0001% of people in the world actually just do what they want to do. And usually those people become super successful in that area. The other 99.9% of people do what the society tells them to do and go against what their heart tells them to do. And then as an adult, they come to me and they're like, oh, I need clarity, son. I'm a communication manager. I'm a designer. I'm a marketer, but I also love music and I'm a really spiritual and I love yoga and I want to like combine all of this into. Oh my God, Jesus, that's not really you. These are the pressure of the society that tells you it's like, boom, 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 this is you, but it's not really you. The music part is the real you. But a lot of people are scared. It's like, oh, what if I become homeless? What if I don't make it in music and I become homeless? Like, oh, so what do? They 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 have one foot in, one foot out. They do the music half-ass, they do their business half-ass, they do their yoga half-ass. And what happens? They just muddies the water and they're trying to somehow meld this into one to try to show that this is me. But no, that's not you. That's you in conflict with what the society wants from you. It's not the real you. So we need to really dig in. And I mean, maybe this is too far out there, but here's what I believe. My entire life, I've I would say like 90% of the time I just did whatever I want without a care for what anybody else thinks or without caring for like, oh, is this going to make money or anything like that. And that's what led me to here, right? And I think that's what led me to being so good at what I do because this is just what I wanted to do my whole life or something like that, right? So yeah, so I just maybe it could be something that if I were to tell a story like that, I would use that as an example to show that no matter how scary it is, no matter how much you think it's not going to happen, like you just have to go after what you want to do or something like that.
Thank you, thank you. That is very useful because I have been reflecting on who is the story for. And one of my ideas also for the podcast that I would like to finally record is about creative lives. So it's about people who would like to have lives not following what society does, but actually interviewing. I have my first guest is a friend of mine who used to live in Belgium, do a similar job, and just left everything to follow her dreams in Thailand and do yoga. So my whole idea actually
Okay.
resonates with what you were saying.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that, and also I also like this. You don't have like let's say you're a lawyer. Like I see a lot of people do this, right? They work in finance, they're a lawyer, or they work in a 9 to 5 corporate job, but they love yoga. So they quit their job and like when you don't have to. You love yoga? Do your job, make money, pay the bills, and do yoga. Not to be famous, not to be a yoga teacher, not to be a yoga influencer, not to try to be Baron Baptiste, but just because you love yoga. See, what we tend to do is we take the thing that we love, we're passionate about, music, yoga, right? And we turn it into a 9 to 5 corporate by saying, oh, I have to become like this in yoga. I have to work in a 5-star restaurant as a chef. No, just cook for your friends at home. You really want to be, if you really love cooking, you don't have to quit your 9 to 5 job and to become a chef. Just cook for your friends. Just do what you love because you love doing it without any expectation and see where that leads you. Why do you have to quit your job and make yourself into this identity of, oh, now I'm a chef, now I'm a musician, now I'm a yogi? Like, no. You know, passion is not. Here, I'll end it with this. I think a lot of us think that. Um, I think a lot of us try to obtain goals by looking at who we want to be. Meaning, oh, I want to be like this person. Oh, I want to be like this person. I want to be like that. I want to be where they are. Rather than thinking about what does my day to day look like? Because a lot of times when you say, "Oh, I want to be like that star basketball player. I want to be like Kobe Bryant." That's one thing. But if you look at Kobe Bryant's day life, where he wakes up at 4, go to the gym for 6 hours, then practice basketball, come home, and you can't eat any junk food. Like, if on Christmas Day, when you have 110-degree fever, you still have to play. Like, look at their day life. Would you really enjoy that? Right? If you look at a musician, look at their day life. If you want to be a chef, look at their day life. Because most of these people that you want to be like, when you look at their day life and you're like, okay, can I live my day life like that? Most of the time, you're going to be like, no, I don't want that. And that's what I think a lot of people realize. Like, I know a lot of people who's like, oh, I want to go into social media marketing, and they do it, and they realize that what that means is getting yelled at by clients every day. Then they realize, oh no, I don't want to do this. And same thing, I want to be a designer. And then when they realize, no, I can't design what I want, I have to design what the client tells me. No, make the logo bigger. Like, that's what the day-to-day looks like. So I think a lot of people disconnect what they want to do, what they want to be, versus what they want to do day to day. So I don't know why I brought that up, but but I think it helps.
Definitely, yeah.
Anything else you want to add or ask?
No, I would just say the thing about doing what you want made me think about what you're saying with our content. Like, do not care about who are you gonna reach, but just care about the quality of what you're producing. So it's a little bit the same with the music.
Yeah.
I think also
Exactly.
my mindset
Exactly.
is changing thanks to that. Like, I don't care anymore who's gonna listen to me. I just care that I can enjoy playing.
Yeah, I love that. And that analogy can work everywhere. Like how you were with music, somebody can be with social media, somebody can be with cooking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's such a great story. I
Thank
really
you.
wish you
Thank
would
you.
rewrite it like with all the visuals and details, and I want to hear it again. I think it's gonna be so good.
Absolutely, I
Like,
will.
while I was listening, and when you got to that part where you said like people were tearing up and things like that, I was like, because I know what that feels like. So yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for sharing the story. Okay, cheers. Let's bring on. Next, we're gonna bring on C. Welcome back, C.
Hi,
Great to
Sun.
see you.
Thank you for having me again.
So yeah, let's, for the people that haven't seen you before, let's do a reintroduction, where you're from, what you do, and then you tell the story.
Yeah, sure. So my name is C, and I'm originally from Hong Kong, and currently I'm living in Poland, and I'm a somatic art therapist and yoga instructor. So I help people with healing their trauma, their inner child, and yeah, that's me. And when I listened to Sophia's story and you're coaching to her, I was like, oh, that is talking to me as well. And the story that I have is actually something that stuck in my mind for like these 2-3 weeks. Is a conversation I had with a friend who we met in person like last summer. And that time we are like just we co-work together, and so we met each other maybe like once a week, something like that, but we don't really talk a lot. And until last month before Christmas, we met for a dinner. And since then, we are like soul sisters. We talk every day, thousands of messages. Our both husbands hate each of us, like thinking we should move in together. And it's a story about we talking just about our business, about how to be authentic in our business. And she was telling me
That's what
when
you were.
she first met me.
That's what you were talking about at that dinner.
No, that is a text message
Oh,
that
okay,
we
okay.
had a few weeks ago. And she was telling me like when she first met me and knowing the internet me, the one that I'm a therapist and doing all these things, and compared to the one that she started talk with, and compared to the one that we are now super close with, she is like, that is 3 different people. And I was really shocked. I asked her, why do you think that is different? She was telling me that she see the online me as like this positive energy, very gentle energy, and always like smiling, be happy with everyone. And the real me is actually someone who struggles as well, like have all these worries about the business, about the frustration in life. And she feel that is like more making her feel that is the real me. And I always thought I was being very authentic in my business because I was sharing these bad moments, but I would always like twist it back into a positive story because I felt like that is my role as a therapist, what I should do. But at the same time, that made me like a bit just like get into my head, interest me about like, oh, that is interesting. That is like I'm not being authentic.
So that's the lesson you learned. You thought you were being authentic, but really you weren't.
But you bet I'm not.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I want to say this. Don't feel bad about that. Because that's everyone, including myself. Okay? Like because everyone does that. Like when I even when you hear like somebody who preaches vulnerability, like Brene Brown, right? Mel Robbins, right? Jay Shetty, right? Like even then they do that. Like they'll say something like, yeah, like, oh, I was watching a video from Jay Shetty the other day. He was like, yeah, it's like he's officiating some celebrity wedding, Ben and Jennifer's wedding, and then he's saying something like he's saying it in front of his wife, and she's sort of like, that's terrible. And immediately he's like, you know who I am? Like, that's my ego speaking up, like things like that, right? But at the end, he turns it like he still makes himself the wise one by saying, this is why, like, wow. So at the end of the day, everyone fucking does it. So don't feel bad about it, right?
Yeah.
The ones that don't do it at all, actually, but I'll tell you this. There is a difference between the ones that does that, are being vulnerable, but still a guru. Being vulnerable, but still I'm still the teacher, versus people that are being vulnerable and I'm one of you. Right? And there are people like that.
Yeah.
They're usually not motivational speaker, authors, or course creators or coaches. Because people in this industry have this narcissistic ego. They're like, oh, it has to be about me. Me. I have to be on the top. I have to be like, this industry tends to attract narcissists like that. But if you look at other industries, right? Like some comedians, podcasters, like things like that, there are plenty of people who's like top of their game who fucking act like they're nothing. And those are actually there's a reason why Joe Rogan podcast gets 11 million downloads per episode. And that's why. Okay. Okay. Now, I have some questions for you.
Yeah.
First question is, can you tell me about that dinner? What did you guys talk about in that dinner? Because the reason why this is key, normally I wouldn't bring that up because doesn't add to the story. But the reason why I bring it up is because whatever you were doing before, even with her, is that polished version of you until that dinner happened. And then after that dinner happens, for some reason you opened up and you became you with her. So what happened in that dinner? What did you guys talk about?
That is something that I never connect the dots with, actually. I didn't really remember like what kind of conversation that we have, but it's something like really general. But that was a dinner that we met with both our husbands and as well. And I always like be really me whenever my husband is there because he is an extrovert and I'm an introvert, like you and Gigi. And when he's there, I can be just like the one that's quiet, don't need to start any conversation. I can just like be the one who responds to the conversation, which is something that I like doing. But I don't like asking questions, but I like answering them. And maybe that is why I got really comfortable in answering and being me in that conversation. It will be something interesting. I will look back on like how our message be after that dinner.
Yeah. So do you think that you tend to, do you think that when your husband is around, you tend to be more present in really having a conversation with this person versus when your husband is around, you feel the need to like present a conversation or maybe something like that?
Yeah, it's like I need to
Like you need to carry the
I need
conversation
to
or
be
something?
not as me. Yes. Like I need to be just like prepared for what is going to be. I remember, I forgot whether it's like in Night Out or somewhere that we're talking about like having the need of like ending a
Yeah.
conversation. And I feel like that.
Okay,
I
got
will
it.
prepare for it to end it.
Got it. Do you, when you're like, okay, so I'm gonna break it into when you have a conversation where you're just being present and just being responsive to whatever the conversation versus here where you're like trying to drive the conversation, I guess. Do you feel like you have a you have an obligation to not bore the person?
Yeah, or the obligation of like not making that person feel I'm weird or I'm not
Yeah.
friendly.
Whereas in here, you're just 100% in the conversation. You're
Yeah.
you're not thinking about it. You're not like really thinking about how this person is looking at me, or like you're just in the conversation. And that,
Yeah, I think it's taking away like the people pleasing part of me.
and does that happen with anyone else? Obviously, your husband probably. But does that happen
And
with
like
anyone else?
super close friends, like
Uh-huh.
need to be really, really close to be in that state.
Got it.
But I feel like I want to show that me in front of like in my business because
But you're
that
scared.
me is like what I love about. But also it's like
Yeah.
I'm scared to show that side
Yeah.
of me.
You know, well, I'll tell you this. I know it's hard. I'm not gonna say like, oh, just do this. Like, just be you. Like, that's this is the worst advice, right? Because okay, it's not. It's easier said than done, right? But I will tell you this,
Yeah.
right? For me, when I did that, when I changed my, instead of like walking into a room with an agenda where I have to prove myself. I have to something like I don't give a fuck. I don't care if I lose this client. I don't care if this video gets 0 views. I don't care if everybody hates me because of this. I'm just gonna be in the converse. I'm for me, conversations for me is equivalent to Sofia playing music. Dude, I just fucking love conversation in itself. That I don't need a second agenda. I need to use this conversation so that I can grow my podcast. I need to use this conversation. Like, that's not it. I just genuinely love conversations. And that's why you see me show up here every week, week after week after week, even though these podcasts only get 100 views. Versus I know that if I do that in Instagram, I can get 100,000 views. Like with the show, like the reason why I show up here and do it is because I truly love the conversation, not because I'm trying to promote my podcast. Okay. So when I started thinking like that, my whole life has completely changed. Like when I started treating everybody like they were my best friend, you know, pretty much. It changed. And it's one of the
Yeah.
things, I think it is one of the things why I talked about it this in Monday Masterclass, but it is one of the reasons why Gigi can be friends with somebody for a year. And then I meet that person just one night, and in an hour, I become closer with that person than Gigi is after a year. It's because when I meet somebody new, in the first 30 minutes, that person is probably going to have the most deepest conversation they've ever had in their life with a stranger. Do you understand what I mean? And that's why
Yeah.
I close every project. That's why because when I go into a meeting, I'm not sitting here like, oh, I need to close project. When I go into a meeting, I am only trying to figure out right now in this conversation, the only thing I'm trying to figure out is I'm not trying to sell anyone. I'm not trying to like, oh, look how smart I am, guys. Like, look at all the great advice. That's not what I'm doing. I'm so connected with you right now. I'm like, what is C struggling with right now? How can I, like, I'm going to put myself in her shoe. I'm going to, let me bring myself to where she was. And what do I need to hear now? Right? I'm just, that's the only thing I'm thinking about right now. That's why the conversations go like this, you know? So, I don't know what I was going with that. Okay. So, I will say that it is going to be life changing. Okay. And secondly, can you give me an example? Okay. From this point on, I want you to be 100%, 110% vulnerable, honest, transparent, authentic with me. Okay. And just pretend like nobody else is listening. And if you want me to cut this part out from the podcast, I'll cut it out. Okay. So just, this is a safe place. Completely open, right? First question. Describe a moment where you did that, where you were trying to be vulnerable, but not really, it wasn't really. So can you give me an example of a time, like a content that you made that was like that or something like that?
I think it's actually something like really vulnerable because I feel like I'm going to piss so many people, so I don't want to say it. But it's something that in my mind all the time. And even like today, I was thinking of it is like the differences between therapist and coach. These like this kind of content or like this what I do is something that's making me really struggle with because like nowadays almost every therapist I know in my life they switched to be a coach and I don't know why I'm just like feeling really not comfortable with it.
Why?
Like I even been through like trainings of being a coach. I don't know, like I feel there is something really blocking me to go there and I don't want to go there. And that is like something I'm very uncomfortable of like starting a conversation with someone because like a lot of my friends are coaches, but I
I
just
see what you
like
mean.
don't
Have you
feel
talked about that
being
with your friend,
one.
the other friend?
Yeah, and we can be super open in talking about it.
Okay, so I'm trying to, I'm kind of seeing it now. Okay, it's not, because I think there's two level of vulnerability and authenticity. Okay, one is on the, one is very clear, cut and clear, like, okay, I don't want to say this because if I say this subject or this thing, if I make this statement, people are going to get mad. Or that's one way of not being vulnerable. But another way of not being vulnerable is just, it's your entire composure. It's like, it's the way you talk, it's everything else. It's the subtle little nuances that you don't see. Like you don't know, but you feel. So for example, somebody can be saying something really vulnerable, but it doesn't feel vulnerable at all. Versus somebody could be saying something that's not as vulnerable, but the way they tell it, it's so fucking vulnerable. It's because you can, those you can almost feel when somebody's really being vulnerable. It's because maybe they're like, they pause at the right time. You can see their like heart kind of shaking. Like it's subtle, tiny little things. Okay, so I actually think that's what it is for me. Because I think that I'm not necessarily being really vulnerable in what I say, but I think it's just the way I talk is why people say, "Oh, son, you're so vulnerable and authentic." Like, but go back and listen to what I say. What I say is actually not that vulnerable. So that's, but let's put that aside for now, okay? Because that's not what you're dealing with. So you're dealing with unpopular statement, which you believe in, that you don't want to say publicly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more like content wise, like
So do you, and do you think that's
things that I share.
do you think that's what your friend meant to, or do you think what your friend meant was like this, more like?
Yeah, I think what she meant more is like content wise, like the words that I use or like the way that I talk more than like the
Do you feel that?
posture or like the voice and these. You mean content
Yeah.
wise
Do you
or?
feel that you're limiting your?
Yeah.
Do you feel that I limit yourself? Okay, and you say something else instead. Do you feel that yourself?
Yeah, I can feel that.
Okay.
It's like there are a lot of these unpopular
So okay,
comments in my mind.
just pretend, and don't pretend. But so I'm gonna cut, if you want, everything out from this point on. Next, okay. Tell me something you want to say, something you told your friend that you said it differently when you said it to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, this we could cut this out. So if you don't like it, we'll cut it out. I want you to be
It's
100%
hard
honest.
to just like
Talk to me as if you're talking to
think
your friends.
right now. I think.
No judgment.
Yeah, now my head is just blank. So I'm like,
No, let's talk
what
about
kind
the
of
therapist
things
thing.
that I say?
So you don't like that coach, like all the coaches become therapists.
I feel like that is taking away a lot of elements inside therapists. Well, let's put it in that way. I have nothing like against therapists transiting to be a coach, but a lot of therapists transit themselves to be a coach just because then they can earn more money. Because like most of the coaches are charging super high price compared to therapists do, and as that purpose, I feel like that is against my value. Like I just cannot put myself into this role, this person,
Like a coach.
to be that. Yeah.
Oh, so does that make you feel like you don't want to be a coach?
Yeah, it made me feel like I don't want to be a coach when everyone around me is telling me to be one.
And the reason why you don't want to be a coach is because maybe you have a negative connotation towards the word coach, or maybe you have a negative connotation towards people that are in the coaching industry or something like that.
Yeah, I guess it's like I at first I also got like super interest in like this area, and I've been through a few coachings, and the results that coaching promised me to, and the value that I like the money I gave to that coach, I feel like they are not balancing, which maybe is like my experience in my regrets
Well, so why
that
did you want
make
to
me
become a
like
coach then?
really. I don't want to. That is like the struggles I have, I guess.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought that you wanted to become a coach because you went through coaching, and that made you want to become a coach. No.
Yes.
So what do you want to be?
No. Like this is a this is a great question that I always every day asking myself of. It's like I don't have the clear identity on myself. This is something I talk in my small group as well. There is 1 week your assignment is about breaking a myth in our industry. And I was questioning myself, so what industry am I in? Like am I in like health and wellness industry, or I'm in mental health industry, or just like who am I? This is something that every day I question myself of.
Maybe the question you should be asking is, who am I helping? Not who am I, but who am I helping?
I want to help the people who are traumatized, who have been through like a bad childhood, and helping them in empowering them to release that and just serving these people.
Got it. Here's what I'm going to say. You have a lot of work to do. Because but the way you do it is through putting out content, right? So for me, the more content I put out, the more confident I become in speaking what I feel is the truth, my truth. Okay. So that's gonna take some time for you to get comfortable with that, but you have to just keep pushing yourself to do that, right? Now, I wouldn't get so carried away on the word coach, because it's just a word, right? So for me,
Yeah.
like I really despise like this industry of high ticket course creators, even course creators or coaches or gurus or all of these things. I'm very like I don't like them, but I still call myself a coach. I still call myself a marketer. I don't like marketers, but I call myself a marketer. I hate coach, but I call myself a storytelling coach. Like, do you understand what I mean? It doesn't matter. Like Gary Vee, everybody calls him a motivational speaker. His main job is running a $300 million agency. That's where he spends 90% of his time, running a $300 million agency. But everybody calls him a motivational speaker. So he calls himself a motivational speaker. Who cares? At the end of the day, if you're helping the people you want to help, who cares what they call you, right? That's kind of like where I'm going right now, because I'm actually struggling with what you're saying right now. Do you understand what I mean? Like, I don't want people to think of me as like, oh, this is course, this membership. Like, I don't want people to think of me that way. So when I like yesterday, I went on Twitter and I tweeted a bunch of shit. Like, it made me feel good, but like the bunch of shit I tweeted is like, here, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so I said, damn, this is harsh. Okay, first, comparing your 50,000 views on TikTok with a stadium of 50,000 people is ludicrous. There's a huge difference between a fan who pays $90 to watch you versus a stranger watching your video halfway because TikTok algorithm showed it to them. Not every view is the same. I have zero respect for people who say they're successful but is trying hard as fuck to sell bullshit high ticket courses. If you're so fucking successful, why do you need to prey on poor people like us? Nobody gives a shit about your video except you. Can we all stop pretending like people actually watch TV or read the New York Times? Who the fuck are we fooling? Everyone who is promoting the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill was the original fake guru. You can either focus on trying to please the algorithm, or you can fuck the algorithm and just make the content you want to make. Now ask yourself, how many creators made it big because of the algorithm and not because they make good content? So I use Twitter to just fucking say what I want to say, right? But a lot of times, like, yeah, I say what I want to say, but that doesn't mean that every time I do something like that, I mean, I try not to do that anymore. But whenever, like, a lot of times I'll call somebody out directly. Like, be like, okay, Murray Folio, your first business is selling a course that teaches people how to make a course and sell it. That's a fucking Ponzi scheme. I'm going to call you out. But I stopped doing that. I stopped calling people out because that's not what I'm about. At the end of the day, I don't care about what they do, okay? What I want to be is like, okay, I don't care how they do it. Yes, I hate all of that. That shit bothers the shit out of me. But at the end of the day, I should focus on my lane, right? Instead of talking shit about other people, right? So I want to stop that. But it's still my truth, so I'm going to speak it. So I want people to know that. I want people to know that, yeah, I'm authentic, blah, 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 but I'm not perfect. There are a lot of shit that I say I wish I hadn't said. And I'll take full ownership of that. And I'll be the first one to say, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't. And I'll be the first one to say, like, here's the thing, like, the reason why I'm so fucking honest and authentic in everything, and you have no idea how many times, like, sometimes I'll say something and my mom will text me like, son, you can't say that. like people, I get that all the fucking time. Every single day I get somebody who doesn't like what I said. Okay. Now, I guess And I just want to be honest about that. Like I'm gonna say it if I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why, even though they attack me, I keep saying it over and over and over again, is because
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to become a better person. I want to
Mm-hmm.
become the type of person that doesn't criticize and judge these fake gurus.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way I fix it is just by me doing it better. Not by putting them down,
Mm-hmm.
but just being better than them. That's the type of person I want to be. I'm very far from that right now. That's why I talk shit all the time. But I almost feel like being authentic like that in public forces me to become a better person. So here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is what most people do. Here's the real them, everything that they want to say. Here's the public version of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not aligned, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like here's like everybody thinks you're like this person. You're all like perfect and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you're like here,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it doesn't align.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to do is I want everyone to think like I'm here. I don't want to present myself as this. I want to present myself as,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
the real me. But then
Yeah.
there's still a gap. So now I need to improve myself to get there. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
faking this, I actually have to become this
Mm-hmm.
and then just be completely authentic and open. And that's what people will see. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I use
Yeah.
social media almost as an accountability tool to keep me accountable
Mm-hmm.
on becoming a better person. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
never going to become a better person if all I'm doing is I pretend like I'm perfect to everyone else. So everybody thinks I'm perfect. Why the fuck am I going to actually try to become a better person? I'm just going to hide. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
dick. I'm just going to hide it from everyone. I can do that. Or I can just show my own self. Okay, criticize me. Yeah, trash me, do all you want. And I'm going to try to
Mm-hmm.
actually become a better person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to like think of the right thing that I think is going to help you. But I don't think there is. I think because even now when people say something like that, and it does bother me
Mm-hmm.
when I say something like
Yeah.
the other day I posted a video on YouTube about like how US is the best country in the world, and because like we import all the best talent from the world, and then we create shows like
Mm-hmm.
Simpsons and Game of Thrones and things like that. Because if you look at all of those shows, if you look at the best products that come out, if you go to Apple and look at their engineers, if you go to Intel and look at their engineers, 50% of those people that work there are foreign born that we've imported from
Mm-hmm.
outside. So we bring the best of the best to here,
Mm-hmm.
and then we create something awesome like
Mm-hmm.
an iPhone or the Titanic or some
Mm-hmm.
movie, right? And then we export it back out to the world, right? That's why I said US is the best country in
Mm-hmm.
the world. Nobody else is innovating like we do here. And then comments that are coming in like, "Oh, you brainwash," So yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
does bother me, but it's not. I guess I've gotten to the point where like it triggers. I'm like, okay, I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I don't want to be like that attacker, but you bring up a very good point. It's like how these can actually motivate me to be a better person as well. Like
Yeah,
the gap, this is like very useful.
yeah, yeah. But the only way you can actually do that is if you are being honest publicly,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's. Yeah, man, what you're dealing with is pretty common problem. I think all of us are, we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of being hated. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
any questions you have or anything before we? Or
No, I think
was this
it's
helpful?
yeah, it is. It brings up a lot of like questions for me as well to dive deeper into like the change from like the relationship I had with my friend as well. And the part of like being comfortable. I didn't expect the conversation to end with almost totally another topic about like the fear on social media, but it is like everything is so relatable and how to dive deeper into the story.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, it's not gonna happen overnight. It's a constant battle that you're gonna be working with. But I really like want to encourage everyone to speak their truth, even though it's kind of like this, right? You wake up in the morning, like there's a huge obstacle, like, oh, I'm so tired, this blanket is so warm and comfy and cozy, I don't want to get out, I don't want, it's like 5 a.m, it's dark outside, I don't want to go out and go downstairs and start running in the cold, right? That is you know, what do you call that, in the Stephen Press called it like resistance, right? That's the resistance, right? And a lot of times the thing that's most meaningful in our life, I really want to talk to that girl, but I'm so scared. Like, what if she rejects me? That's resistance. Oh, I really want to ask this question, but like, I have to go to the gym, but I don't want to go. Like, whenever you have those resistance, that fear, that's a sign that you should go after it, right? Because on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that resistance, is the greatest thing in your life. You understand what I mean? So the same thing is happening to you right now. Every time you want to talk about this, as soon as you turn on the camera, there's a resistance. I don't want to say it. But once you say it, and you post it, like even when you post it, it's like, okay, I delete, rewrite, rewrite. No, I delete. I'm going to say it like this. Even then, all of that is just resistance. But if you just go towards that fear, go towards the center and face that fear straight on the other side of that is the best thing in your life. It's the best moment in your life. That's what I ended on.
Yeah. Thank you, Sun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And, feel free to come back. More stories. I know you're very like committed at Night Owl Nation. I know you're always storytelling and stuff like that. So more stories, bring it on.
Yeah, definitely. I love storytelling. So
thank you so much. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for coming on again. Thank you everybody for listening. So I'll see you guys next week. If you guys want to be a part of the podcast, it's only for Night Owl Nation members. So you have to join Night Owl Nation. And I'll see you guys next week. Cheers. Bye.